Well, good morning or good afternoon to everyone, depending on what part of the country you are calling in from. My name is Ginger Bell, and I am here today with Finance of America to discuss the new January 1st, 2018 Government Monitoring Information Requirements. So while everyone's getting logged in, I will go through a couple of housekeeping issues. First of all, you can listen either by phoning in or by listening on your computer. You can check your audio settings on your computer. I do have everyone muted because we have maxed out the registration for this webinar. It's a very hot topic and important information, and so we do have everyone muted. However, if you do have questions, you can type them in the question box, and you can do that by just clicking on either the chat or by clicking on the question box and typing a question in there. And let's actually go ahead and make sure that you all know how to do that. And just type in, if you can type in what part of the country you're calling in from. And we want to wish you happy Hanukkah, happy holidays. And I also like to know if you have snow in your area. My son is actually flying in from Ohio to Oregon tomorrow, and it looks like they may have snow there. So I'm crossing my fingers, hoping not anything major, so he can make it home, because I'm looking forward to seeing him. Wow, 85 in California. Excellent. Yeah, I was in the East Coast last week, and the weather was incredible. Fort Lauderdale was like 85 degrees on Thursday. So, and to our friends in Southern Cal, only fires. Dawn, I know, I'm so sorry. We are wishing you all the best, and it's so unfortunate what's happening with that. But we do wish you all the best. So it looks like you all can hear me. First thing, if you have anyone who did get registered for this and they're not able to hop on, I am recording it, and we will be posting it out, and I'll be sending a follow-up email to you tomorrow that will have the recording, and then it'll also have the slide deck. If you would like a copy of the slide deck that I'm going to be going through, as well as the Government Information Addendum, I'm posting that in your chat box, and those are two live links. So if you just click on the link, it should take you to that information on your computer. I know, Priscilla, you had said that you couldn't access it. If someone can just do me a quick favor and click on that link and let me know that you can access it, that would be great. I know I tested it and it worked for me. Okay, thanks, Dan. It works. Excellent. So I will introduce myself to you. My name is Ginger Bell. I am a consultant for Finance of America. I'm also an education specialist and do a lot of training across the country. I was actually just in Denver yesterday doing some training. I've had the opportunity of writing 2 books with Brian Tracy, Cracking the Success Code and Success Today, and just found out actually over the weekend I've been invited to write another book with Jack Canfield, and so that will be coming out in 2018. I don't even know what I'm going to be writing about yet, so if you have any ideas what you want to hear about, let me know. I'm going through topics right now. But I have had the opportunity to work in the lending industry for just about 20 years now, and am fortunate to be able to work with Finance of America. And when this information came through over the last month and a half ago, they've been kicking back changes on HMDA for a while. We wanted to make sure and get this information to everyone, especially to our broker clients and our non-delegated clients, because it does have an impact on you and what you're doing. Need to go through our legal disclaimer first. You want to check with, obviously, your IT department, your legal counsel, your compliance officers, because the contents are intended to convey general information only and not to provide any legal advice or opinions. And so the contents we are providing, as well as the posting and viewing of this information, should not be construed as and should not be relied upon for any legal advice in any particular circumstance or fact or situation. The information presented may not reflect the most current legal developments. Things do change quickly. And further, this information may contain technical inaccuracies or typographical errors. No action should be taken in reliance on the information. We disclaim all liability in respect to actions taken or not taken based on any or all of the contents of the fullest extent permitted by law. And again, consult with your attorney for any specific legal advice. And this is information to provide you what's happening and a change that's happening although if you're a broker and you're listening to this and are non-delegated, you may not have the requirements of HMDA, but this does have an impact because it is regarding government monitoring information. And that information refers to the loan applicant demographic data that we collect when consumers apply for mortgage loans. So our government information, GMI information, refers to the loan applicant demographic data that we collect under Regulation B, which implements the Equal Credit Opportunity Act, or ECOA, and then Regulation C, which implements the Home Mortgage Disclosure Act, or HMDA. And when consumers apply for certain mortgage loans, then we are required to collect this information. The regulatory requirement for lenders to collect this information dates back to 1977. And currently, we collect this information in Section 10 of the Uniform Residential Loan Application, or the 1003. So who collects the information? It's anyone who takes a loan application. So this will impact everyone. Everyone who takes a loan application will need to complete the Demographic Information Addendum. What does it mean? What this means is that beginning January 1st of 2018, all loan applications that are taken on or after this date must include the Demographic Information Addendum. So for Finance of America Wholesale, this is effective for all loans that are submitted to Finance of America on or after January 1st of 2018. So you will need to have the DIA, or the Demographic Information Addendum, for any loan application that's submitted to Finance of America on or after January 1st of 2018. And it's important to remember that this is for all applications that you take. So you have to take, when you take an application, you must complete the new Demographic Information Addendum. So what this does is this is in support of the expanded demographic information that is required under the new HMDA rules. And Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac released a Demographic Information Addendum, which they call the Addendum. And this is to be used with the existing 1003. So the 1003 is not changing, but we will have this new addendum. So the GMI information, the government monitoring information, cannot be collected after January 1st on the standard 1003 form. You must use the Demographic Information Addendum. The existing 1003 demographic information will no longer show after January 1st of 2018. Now, you're going to check with your LOS for implementation, and that's the first thing you want to do is check, find out which LOS you're using, check for implementation. Obviously, they're making changes with that, and so you want to make sure that that information is in there, but you will not be able to use that portion on or after January 1st of 2018. This is what the form looks like, and as I said, I've put a link in there, and I'm looking like I'm reading your links. So the link is in the chat box, and I'll make sure and put it up there again. But if you check in the chat box, you can access it there, and that way you can get an idea as far as what that looks like. And I'm not getting my chat box right now, so I'll put it back up there again in a minute. But I want to go through it piece by piece so you have an idea of what it looks like. So what I've done is broken it down so you can actually see each area. And we're going to start with the new disclosure. So it's the first portion of it has the demographic information of the borrower. And I'm going to go through each step, whether you're taking this information face-to-face or on the internet or by phone. It's different in how you're going to manage this. But we'll look at first the demographic information of the borrower, and you'll want to read this. You're required to read this to them. And I'm not going to read it to you right now, but you'll want to make sure and read that. And then make sure and follow the instructions. And the instructions are important, and you'll probably have questions on this because there are some different options with this as far as how you can fill it out. So they can select one or more Hispanic or Latino origins and one or more designations for race. And it's also important to understand that if they do not wish to provide some or all of the information, then they need to check those boxes as well. There are new disaggregated race and ethnicity fields. So what we had before with ethnicity and race now breaks down into subcategories, if you will, or disaggregated areas. So we have Hispanic or Latino, and underneath that, then we have options of Mexican, Puerto Rican, Cuban, or other Hispanic or Latino, and they can fill in that blank on what they want to put in there. They can also select not Hispanic or Latino, or they do not wish to provide the information. Under the new free forms, as you see, and there's 4 different areas that have the free forms, they can write anything in there that they wish. So if they would want to get into more detail about what they can provide in there, then they can provide that information in the new free form fields. There's also a new section to note if the information is taken on the basis of visual observation or a surname. And so each one of these areas are to be completed by you for applications that are taken in person. So if you're completing that, then was this a yes or no? So was it completed based on observation or surname, yes or no? Was the sex completed on visual observation or surname, yes or no? Was the race collected based on the information of visual observation, yes or no? So each one of those to be completed by you. And then finally, an updated application taken by options. So we have face-to-face interview, which also includes electronic media. So if you're doing in a meeting by Skype or by FaceTime, whatever, if you're doing a video meeting and you're seeing them, then that would be considered face-to-face. Obviously, telephone interview, fax or mail, and then email or internet. There are 15 new disaggregated GMI options and 4 new freeform fields. And so the demographic addendum below has all of the new disaggregated options selected. And here you can see how they can fill that out. They can also select as many areas in the disaggregate or the aggregate and the freeform option as they would like. So they don't have to choose just one. They can select them all. A borrower may select a disaggregate category without selecting the aggregate category. For example, if the borrower only states that they are Mexican, but they do not also select Hispanic or Latino, and they can do that. Also for Asian, they can select any one of the options under the disaggregate area, the categories, and not select actually the Asian category. A borrower can choose to identify as Hispanic and Latino and not Hispanic and Latino. So basically, it's not a matter of check one or the other. They can check as many boxes as they would like to select. A borrower may also self-identify as both male and female. And a borrower may select an other option without providing a free-form response. They also may provide a free-form response without indicating other. Under the new GMI Selection Options, a borrower may opt to provide the name of a principal or enrolled tribe, regardless of whether or not they select American Indian or Alaska Native. Also, if the borrower provides a free-form response, indicate their response exactly as provided, even if you think it is not applicable. So whatever they put in there is what you leave in there. So the question is, do I need to complete an addendum for each borrower? So for your borrower and your co-borrower, or multiple borrowers and co-borrowers, and the answer is yes. Everyone that's going on the application must have a separate addendum. So it's not like it was before where you have a borrower and co-borrower on one and not on the other. So each person that's going on the application must have a demographic information addendum. So where do you find the new form? So Finance of America wholesale clients will have the addendum available in the Platinum forms. It's also available on the Fannie Mae website, and then also it should be integrated in with your LOS. So you want to check with your provider and find out where they're at with that. I know many have already made the updates, so you want to find out where they're at as far as integrating it with yours. I have just put it back in there on the chat so you can have that information in there as well. I am going to send out a link to it on a follow-up email that will come out to you tomorrow, so you can access it there as well. So let's talk about how you collect the information. And there are a variety of ways that you can collect the information, including face-to-face. And again, this includes your electronic applications that are taken with a video component. Whether you're taking an application or completing the addendum by telephone, fax, or mail, or email or internet. So let's talk about your collection methods. So the collection method for your government monitoring information is based on how the specific information is obtained from the borrower, regardless of how the remainder of the application is taken. So for example, if you get the initial information for pre-qualification without the government monitoring information of the phone, but then you sit down with them in person after they find a property and then they submit a full application, and then the application method is face-to-face, because that is when you're collecting the information. So it's not based on how you take the application, it's based on how you collect the information for the Demographic Information Addendum. So if it's face-to-face, if the borrower declines to provide your government monitoring information in a face-to-face interview, then the loan originator must note this on the document, as well as in your LOS, and then collect the information based on visual observation or surname. This includes electronic submissions with a video component. Again, if you're doing Skype, if you're doing FaceTime, there's even the platform we're using right now with Zoom, you can do a face-to-face meeting. So if you're doing any kind of a face-to-face collection method on the government information, then you need to note it as taken face-to-face. Also requires that the loan originators complete the visual observation or surname section on the new addendum. So that's the most important thing, is how you're collecting that information. Now, if you're collecting it over the phone, then you must provide the disclosure and all options verbally. So that means you must read everything to them. You must complete all sections unless the borrower indicates that they do not wish to provide the information for all 4 of the GMI categories. So let's talk about email or internet. So if you're taking an application and the government monitoring information by email or internet, then they need to use and submit the Demographic Information Addendum for applications. And so you need, unless you meet with the borrower face-to-face after receiving an incomplete application, you do not collect on basis of visual observation or surname. So it really goes down to how you're collecting the information based on how you are meeting with them to collect that information, not just based on how you're taking that application. Now, if you're taking an application by mail or fax, then the borrower needs to use and then submit the Demographic Information Addendum for these applications, unless, of course, if you meet with them face-to-face. So those are the 4 different options as far as collection. And the bottom section of the addendum, once you have completed all the information, should be filled out for all applications. And again, it's based on how you're collecting the government monitoring information. So if it's face-to-face interview, that's what you're going to check off. If it's a telephone interview, that's what you're going to check off. It's a fax or mail interview, that's what you're going to check off. It's an email or internet, that's what you're going to check off. And remember, it's not just how you take the application, it's how you collect the information for the addendum. So I'm going to take a quick second and see what kind of questions we have. So I'm seeing one. If we have a borrower who has a Hispanic surname like Garcia or even Tarzan and we don't have a visual, would we need to guess that they are Hispanic? or Armenian. So this is an area where you will want to speak with your compliance, your legal, to determine how you're going to do that. By definition of the law, if you're taking a face-to-face and they choose not to complete the information, then yes, you are required to base that. And when you go through actually reading the disclosure to them, it clearly says in there that you are required to do that as well if they don't want to fill it out. But again, check with your legal department to find out how they want you to handle that as well. And if you're having questions, type those in. We will probably put an FAQ together for you for as much as we can answer on these questions as well. So it's important to note that the information that you're completing here reflects, again, how you're completing the government monitoring information, so how you're collecting it, regardless of how the information was taken for the application. So let's talk about telephone collection. If you're taking an application as well as the government monitoring information by phone, then you must read the entire disclosure to them verbatim before asking for any government monitoring information data. And so beginning with going through what the purpose is, how it protects them, what the monitoring is, that they are not required to provide this information, but they're encouraged to do so. It also says that the law provides that we may not discriminate based on the information or on whether they choose to provide it or not provide it. And again, you are required to read this to them verbatim. Because it goes on to explain that if they choose not to provide the information and that they're making the application in person, that federal regulation requires us to note your ethnicity, sex, race on the basis of visual observation or surname. Now you're doing this over the phone, so you're not meeting them in person. So that's not something you're going to do. But you still have to read this entire disclosure to them. And then once you do that, then you're required to read all race, all sex, all ethnicity options in the order that they appear on the Demographic Information Addendum or in your LOS. You do not skip any options because you think that they would not apply to that borrower. And for each free-form field, indicate that they also have the option of providing another designation that is not on the form. If the borrower declines to provide their ethnicity, do not assume that they also do not want to provide their sex and race unless they indicate that they do not want to provide any demographic information. If the borrower expresses that they want to make a specific choice, prior to reading all of the available options, mark their selection and continue reading the remainder. So let's talk about step 3, documenting the borrower's selection. The borrower can select as many race and ethnicity sections as they would like. It is your job to input the information into the system exactly as provided by the borrower, even if you think it may be inaccurate or doesn't make sense. If the borrower says they do not wish to provide all or part of the government monitoring information, document their selections accordingly. So let's move on to internet, email, fax, and mail. And I'm seeing some questions come in, which I'll get to at the end of this. So if you can hang on just a second, I'm going to get to your questions. But I'm going to go through your internet and email and fax options. So step 1, use the correct collection form. You want to check with your IT department to determine that the correct collection form is being used, especially if you're using it on the internet. So if you have something on your website, make sure you're using the correct form. If you receive an application via email, fax, or mail without the new Demographic Information Addendum or with incomplete information, then what you will do is contact the borrower to obtain the new information. And this is one of those areas where you're going to want to come up with a policy and procedure for, first of all, collecting the information. Second of all, if it's incomplete information, what happens? And then to make sure that that information is completed, and especially as we're starting through this, because as you know, anytime there's a change, getting your staff to be able to follow that can be difficult. And we've done this for a long time. So this is going to be a change of a habit. So what I would recommend for our broker owners out there is to establish your policy and procedure and to make sure that that's followed and monitored as you go along too. You want to make sure and use the proper instructions for the channel in which you contact them for the updated info. So again, if they have not completed the demographic information and you're going to contact them by phone, then you want to go back, read through the disclosure to them, and go through the options. You also cannot guess on the borrower's behalf, and you cannot simply transfer the information from the 1003 to the new form. So we're going to have a little period of time here, as we always do through a change, because this is effective on January 1st, 2018, where you're going to want to check through all your files and make sure that the addendum is in here. That's one of the things that will be happening when you submit a loan to Finance of America as well. So they'll be contacting you, letting you know whether they need that additional information. So step 2, accurately document the borrower's selections. The borrower can select as many race and ethnicity sections as they want. It is your job to input the information into your LOS system exactly as provided by the borrower, even if you think it may be inaccurate or doesn't make sense. If the borrower says they do not wish to provide all or part of the government monitoring information, document their selections accordingly. Okay, and I'm seeing lots of questions. You guys are typing away here, so I tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to keep going, and then I'm going to take a quick second and try and read through a lot of your questions. But you're like writing novels here. This is fabulous. Let me see what I can get to. Well, let's move on to our face-to-face collection first. So step 1, ask the applicant for their GMI selections. So for your face-to-face meetings, you'll want to bring the demographic addendum to face-to-face meetings with the borrower and have them fill out the addendum. You'll still need to read the entire disclosure to them as far as what that is, but then have them complete it. Ask the borrower to read the addendum, or you can read it to them and point out the disclosure and the instructions. If you do not have the demographic addendum, the disclosure must be made orally and all options presented in the order in which they appear on the form. So here's a best practice. Bring the demographic information addendum to all face-to-face meetings. And again, this is one of those things for our broker owners. You want to make sure, change your policies and procedures, add this. Make sure that everyone knows what you're doing, what you're requiring. And that way that these are then included in your files. So face-to-face, step 2, review the applicant's selections. After the borrowers fill out the addendum, review their selections to determine if they opted not to provide their GMI selection for race, sex, or ethnicity. Step 3, and this is selections based on visual observations or surname. If the borrower declines to provide any or some of the GMI in a face-to-face interview, the loan originator must collect this information on the basis of visual observation or surname and note it. Important note, check with your legal and or compliance department for your company policy. We are not here to give policy to you on what you should be doing. What we're here is to share with you information on what the change is, what the disclosure is, and talk about setting up best practices. So it's up to you to determine what you're doing as far as your company policy. Step 3, and this is for face-to-face, complete the visual observation section on the addendum. So this section should only be completed for applications taken or completed in a face-to-face interview. So this is if you are taking a face-to-face interview, you will complete this information. The ethnicity was collected on the basis of visual observation or surname, yes or no. Was the sex of the borrower collected on the basis of visual observation or surname? Yes or no? Was the race of the borrower collected on the basis of visual observation or surname? Yes or no? And then select which GMI was taken on the basis of visual observation or surname. So you can see how each are categorized there. So for example, if the borrower voluntarily provided race and ethnicity but declined to provide, or sex and ethnicity, and declined to provide race, then this section should be completed as that. And again, that's on face-to-face. So your face-to-face collection, if the borrower fails to provide all or part of the GMI when submitting the application by any other channel, and the loan originator subsequently meets with the applicant in person, they must ask for this information again and follow the steps for face-to-face applications. So remember, it is based on when you are collecting the information for the government information addendum. And this is only if the applicant leaves this section completely blank when submitting by another collection method, not if they select, I do not wish to provide. So for example, the applicant has been sent the application via mail, but they left the sex selection blank. Then you meet with the applicant the next day, you're going to review that information. So in this case, you must provide the disclosure, ask for the information again, and you're just verifying information. That's all you're doing. You're not saying, hey, did you get this right or wrong? You're just saying, I'm just reviewing this information with you. And again, this is what you need to make sure you have as part of your policies and procedures. So if it's not complete, then you're just calling to review the information. It's the same as if you would go through information on their income. As far as I'm just verifying that you have this information, and that's just the practice that you would use for that. So, review, effective date January 1st, 2018. And that's for all files that are submitted to Finance of America on January 1st of 2018. You can find the Demographic Information Addendum, which will be available in your Finance of America Platinum forms. It is also available on the Fannie Mae website. And check with your LOS provider. And I've been sharing the information as far as the link up there. I'm recording this webinar. I'm going to send out a recording tomorrow. It's not, the system doesn't allow me to send it out today, so I'll send it out tomorrow. And then also send out links to the addendum as well as the slide deck tomorrow, so you can go through that. So with that, I'm going to see what I can do as far as answering some of your questions. And again, this is a reminder, guys, this webinar is informational purposes. This is not legal advice. I am not an attorney. And so you want to check with your compliance department to find out what your policies and procedures are. So with that, first question, I'm going from the bottom up just because it's easier. So question is, these changes take effect January 1st, correct? My broker was told Freddie wasn't ready for new changes, was trying to push it back until July 1st. Please advise. So there's two changes that are happening. One of the changes is with the new Uniform Residential Loan Application. That part has been pushed back. As far as the Demographic Information Addendum, as far as we know as this date, it is effective January 1st. Just the addendum. So it's not the application. So we're still going to use the old application. It's just we have an addendum now that we'll be using that will collect that information. Okay, next question. Is the addendum in Spanish? That I do not know. Marcy's asking if it is in Spanish and can we translate it for them? Marcy, that is an excellent question. I do not know that yet. So let me see what I can find out. I'm going to note it. I haven't seen anything, but I'm assuming that it would be also available in Spanish, but I haven't seen anything on Fannie or Freddie's site for it yet. So I will check into that and I'll make sure and include it in our follow-up email tomorrow. Okay, next question. Are you required to read the disclosure if collecting the information face-to-face, or do you only need to read the disclosure if you're collecting information over the phone? So to our anonymous attendee who asked that question, from my understanding, and again, it's just my understanding, you can provide them if you're taking an application, if you're, I'm going to have to get over that, or if you're taking an application. If you're collecting the information face-to-face, then from my understanding is you can give them the addendum and ask them to read it. In my opinion, when you're giving someone information and asking them to read it, it's usually better for you just to read it and explain it to them. But that is just my opinion. So question, I thought if it was a telephone application, we do not need to read the portion of disclosure related to face-to-face applications. So my understanding, you have to read it if it is a telephone app, where you're gathering information orally. So that is my understanding. Next question, is there a simple way to obtain information by emailing to the borrowers with an easy click process for their selections so they don't have to print and fill out? You know what? There probably is, and I would check with your IT departments to see what they can do with it. But you need to remember to check with your LOS because it's integrated in there. So I don't know if there is an easy form that is going to be an addendum for that. So I would stay tuned and check with your IT departments on that, because obviously with all the online applications and processes we have right now, you would think that they would have this available in that way too. So Marcy, thank you for your question. And I would say that is a coming soon answer. I would look for that and check with your IT department. Okay, so Amy, it's a separate addendum. She's asking if it's part of the 1003 or it's a separate addendum. So it is a completely separate addendum. It is no longer a part of your 1003. That section 10, section X, section 10 will no longer be available. There will be a transition period, from what I understand, that part of it, if it has been completed, that it will have to be blacked out. I'm not sure how all of the LOSs are doing that right now, but it is after January 1st, not supposed to be available on your application. So it's a completely separate addendum. It will be required for both, for all your borrowers, borrower, co-borrower, however many there are on the application. So everyone has their own addendum. So everyone will be filling out their own addendum. It is no longer included in the application, and it is no longer included for borrower and co-borrower. And David, is the addendum the same for both Fannie and Freddie? I assume it is. I pulled it from Fannie's website, and I'm assuming it should be the same. It'll be integrated in with your LOS. So there should not be any differences between the two of them that I'm aware of. Okay, and I'm going to go check to our chat box too to read some of our, okay. I am going to go back here, and what we may do is just put frequently asked questions. If you have any other questions, type them in there. Why is an applicant able to select both Hispanic, Latino, and not Hispanic and Latino? Seems strange. You know what? It's a great question. I don't have an answer for that. So it's just the way the new form is, that basically the new addendum, they can check as many, as little, as much, fill in the blank, whatever they want to put in there. They can make something up. And I'm sure they won't. The reality is, guys, this is important to get this information. This is information that's been collected, as I said, since 1977. We've been collecting this information. There's options, so people can provide a little bit of information, which will hopefully provide more housing options, financing ability, all the fair lending, everything that we gather all this information for, to those particular areas, and that's really why we gathered this information as well. Okay, question. Can you start using the form before January 1st? So I can't give you an answer on that. We've done a lot of research on it. I know, Suzanne, you're asking this. I have read on some sites, they're saying, yes, you can start using it. You can start collecting that information. And there may be instances that it makes sense to do that. So unfortunately, I can't advise you one way or the other. You can't, there is nothing that's going to prevent you from gathering that information. It's an addendum. So it's up to you on what you want to do with that. And I have read on some information, including Fannie's website, that you can start collecting it prior to January 1st. So it's up to you on what you decide you want to do with your company. Yes, so Doug, you're asking if the Demographic Information Addendum, the portion of the 1003 will no longer be used. That's correct. So that portion will no longer be used. Some of you are getting into lender information. Oh, Mike, you found the Spanish form. Great. Okay, thank you. Mike Jones, excellent job. He says that there is a Spanish form. It is available on the Fannie Mae site. And I will grab that and make sure and put that in as well. And I'm seeing some repeat questions in here. Yeah, I'm not sure. Kyle, you're asking a question on HMDA. So we're not getting into the HMDA information right now. The HMDA changes, guys, will be coming. We have a new application coming. Our new 1003 Uniform Residential Loan application will be coming. That is a coming soon show as well. And so it's been a bit of a moving target, anticipating 2018. And so stay tuned for that. I'm seeing a couple more questions. Okay, Ben, I'm gonna take your question, and I think that's what I'm going to close out with. And if you have any other questions, feel free to contact your Finance of America account executive as well, and they can see what they can do as far as providing you information as to what Finance of America will be doing and collecting this information beginning on January 1st. So I'm going to leave with this closing question and then follow up as far as any information that we have after that. So Ben is asking, what if at closing the borrower disagrees with what is on the addendum? Can they change it? Yes, they can change that. And this is one of those things that if you do a face-to-face meeting and you're required to complete it and then they see it at closing and they disagree with it, then they may want to answer that. But it also, you're required to complete that information if they don't want to complete that information. And it's one of those things, go back through your files. How often does somebody not want to complete the information? Of all the training that I've ever done on fair lending, we have not very often run into it, but it's their right. So if they don't wish to complete the information, then that's up to them. The most important thing to stress is the effective date will be January 1st. So on all applications received by Finance of America on or after January 1st, you will need to have the Demographic Information Addendum. From my understanding, you can start collecting that information now. On the Fannie Mae website, you can start collecting that information now. So if you'd like to do that, you can. After January 1st, the portion on the application, the Uniform Residential Loan application, will no longer be used for any applications taken on or after January 1st. You can no longer use that section. You must have the Demographic Information Addendum. The forms are available on the FAM Platinum Forms website, the Fannie Mae website. We found out that it is available in Spanish, so that will be, I'll include that as well. And I want to thank Finance of America for providing this information. And they came to me and said, there's a change happening. We want to make sure that we let our customers know what's going on so they can be a step ahead of the game. And that's really what it's about, is being able to provide you with the information so you all can stay a step ahead of the game and be compliant in what you're doing and continue to provide what you do. And that's a great and valuable service to provide home ownership to those who are moving into that step, whether they're a first-time home buyer, whether they're a veteran, whether they're getting a reverse mortgage, whatever it is. And so I applaud you all for all that you do to be able to provide that. I wish you all a very safe, happy holiday season, and I look forward to seeing you all very soon, if not at a live training somewhere on another webinar. So thank you all very much, and I wish you a safe and happy holiday season.